What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. He is Andrew Destin. I am Noah Hiles. As always, our Pirates content is brought to you by North Shore Tavern. If you love baseball, you'll love the North Shore Tavern. The interior is wall-to-wall Pirates. There are appetizers, entrees, cocktails, and of course, steak and seafood on a sizzling lava stone. Open every day. The North Shore Tavern is right across from PNC Park and is the home for Pittsburgh's steak on a stone. Andrew, hopefully, maybe the North Shore Tavern has a few waiters, servers, bartenders that can hit a baseball, because right now that's lacking from the Pittsburgh Pirates. We typically do a good, bad, and the ugly. But like, it just feels like we're wasting time by pointing out good. Like Quinn Priester, he was good today, right? Like
Right.
there have been good starts, appearances, whatever. But us talking about that would be a waste of breath. We have to address the elephant in the room. We've continually addressed the elephant in the room, but it's reached a point where we're in May now. This team's played more than a month full of games. It's 14-18. It started 9-2, and there is one clear big issue that has no resolution in sight. The fielding, it can get better. The bullpen, it can get better. I don't know how the offense gets fixed. And that's what we're going to talk about. Something has to change with this offense. We've got three pillars, bullet points that we're going to address. Before we do, Andrew, I just want to turn the floor over to you to just talk about how bad it was these 3 games in Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go stats? Let's do stats. With runners in scoring position, what were the Pirates on this road trip? 2 for 36. How many runners did they leave on base? They left 46 runners on base. Henry Davis went a week without putting a ball in play. I could go on and on about how putrid this was. And that's not a term that I throw around loosely. It's just across the board. This was as trying a road trip as I think Pirates fans, the team, players involved have seen in a while. And frankly, not to paraphrase Bull Durham, but it's a miracle that they won a game. I mean, they got saved by a couple home runs on Saturday night against the Giants. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for Manfred runners, this team probably puts up a big fat donut and goes 0-6. So offensively, man, there is so little to lean on aside from maybe having an argument of Connor Joe should be an everyday player. But that feels like that's missing the point even, because these issues run much deeper than just Connor Joe should face righties. Jack Suwinski's struggling, Oneil Cruz is struggling, Henry Davis is struggling. All 3 of those guys are people that you needed to be thriving. That has not been the case, and especially not this last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however you want to phrase it. So this was really just the apex of it. This was the inflection point, I think, and I know you're in agreement about that, of something's going to change, and there's a lot of different avenues we can go about this.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is I remember talking in the clubhouse to players during that Milwaukee series, and you could feel we're close to a breakthrough. You could feel we're close to a breakthrough. We've made solid contact. We won 2 of 4 against Milwaukee, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, I'm not even confident that this is the low point. It might be. It should be. It certainly should be. When you went to San Francisco and faced a team that entering that series had the second to worst ERA in the National League, and then you go into Oakland and get swept by a team that is actively trying to lose. The plot of Major League is happening in Oakland, California right now. And it's not going to play out the same way, unfortunately, in the end. But and that it's just offense has lost them 5 of their last 6. So how do things change? There are 3 things that I think we could look into for change, and we want to hit on all 3 of them real quick. First one is strategy. This team-wide approach is not working. It's not. Making every player walk up to the plate with a bat in their hand and attack an opposing pitcher the same way, quite frankly, I think it's a foolish strategy at this level of baseball. I think it's a foolish strategy for any level of baseball, honestly, Andrew. I think individuals should be coached individually. And it's how do you change that now after you've worked on it for multiple years with this guy throughout all of spring training this year, and you've played a month with it? Can they pivot strategy at this point with keeping the same staff intact? And we'll get into staff stuff later. But what would that look like as far as a change in approach team wide?
Yeah, I think it's completely feasible, and I'll even go back to last April, and I'm sure Pirates fans will know where I'm going about with this. Is playing small ball, using athleticism. Obviously, this Pirates team is not using the base paths to their advantage right now. Stealing bases has not been a key component of this. I bring all of that up to say that you have to find a way to manufacture runs, and the Pirates did do that on Tuesday night against Alex Wood. Alika Williams drops down a sacrifice bunt, and then Bryan Hiles has a sacrifice fly. Now, albeit the next 15 batters were all retired, so they couldn't exactly continue doing that strategy on Tuesday night. But I bring that up because you look at the game on Wednesday against Ross Stripling, who hadn't won an MLB game since October of 2022, and was being paid, to pay homage to Moneyball. He's like the David Justice character here, where he's being paid by the San Francisco Giants to pitch across the bay for the Oakland A's on a 2-year deal. The Giants didn't want to keep him. Instead, the A's are benefiting and having him for free. It's missing the point. My point is that they can be a small ball team again, and I know this is kind of bleeding into the next point when it comes to roster construction, but there are athletic guys waiting in AAA that you can call up that can manufacture runs, that can benefit from that, and you've got guys on roster. There's nothing saying that you can't unleash the wheels more on Oneil Cruz, on Jared Triolo, on some of these outfielders.
Michael A. Taylor.
Yeah, Michael A. Taylor, we haven't seen swipe a bag in forever. I mean, it's across the board. There's opportunity there. It hasn't taken place. So, in terms of seeing pitches, taking pitches, being more aggressive, to me, sure, we can have those kind of conversations. But the approach in terms of essentially acting like a long ball team when hitting homers is something that is not part of their DNA. Bryan Hiles has said as much that they can't be a team that's reliant on the long ball. We're seeing it on a day-to-day basis right now.
Yeah, so let's get into that. Personnel changes, Andrew, as far as players. There are 3 guys who are absolutely going scorched earth right now in Indianapolis. Ji-hwan Bae, Jake Lamb, and of course Nick Gonzalez. Is it as simple as calling them up? I mean, those 3 guys aren't going to fix your lineup.
No.
But they do provide what you said. Nick Gonzalez puts the ball in play. His strikeout rate is 10% down this season compared to what it's been in his minor league career. Jake Lamb is a guy where if you're looking at him, I'm not sure what he can't do that Rowdy Tellez is doing right now. Like, he cannot be any worse, and he's of similar age, actually a little older, but plays, left-handed bat. Like, why not give him a try, right? And then with Bae, he is small ball. He is a guy who can put pressure on opposing defenses by simply putting the ball in play. So is it these 3 guys, or should they also be looking to add externally? Should they be looking at guys who aren't currently on a major league team? Maybe a guy like a Brandon Belt, who's a free agent right now. Or should they be shopping in the trade market? Should they be picking up anyone who has had previous success that goes on waivers? What should they be looking to add right now?
Yeah, for me, it's outfield would be where I go. And that might catch some people off guard because they've got a plethora of outfielders. But frankly, I look at the cast and I say, okay, coming into the season, there were a lot of questions about, the group at large, and a lot of those were put to rest early on. But frankly, Edward Olivares, Michael A. Taylor, Andrew McCutchen, Jack Suwinski have all been much lower than expectations, right? At least recently, at least the last couple of weeks. Yes, you could have the arguments about Rowdy Tellez, and I'm certainly willing to hear those because I'm of the opinion that Connor Joe should be an everyday player.
Yep.
But I've also seen the last couple of days that Tellez has had better at-bats, singled again today, had a good end of the series in San Francisco. Again, that's missing the point. This is a guy who's below the Mendoza line or right around it. But I look to the outfield because Jack Suwinski should be a bigger component to this. Edward Olivares had a great start, and as he's vanished, so has a lot of the offense. Andrew McCutchen has said as much to us here in Oakland that he hasn't held up his end of the bargain in hitting below the Mendoza line. Outfield production is a must. That's non-negotiable. Every MLB team that's successful has big boppers in the outfield, guys who are hitting 20 home runs, guys who are hitting close to 300. That isn't there, and you don't look in the minor leagues and say, oh, there's an obvious solution there. At least with the infield, you can say, okay, maybe Nick Gonzalez, maybe Leo Figueroa, maybe Ji-hwan Bae, maybe a veteran guy like a Jake Lamb. So in terms of external acquisitions, which I would absolutely be open to, outfield is where I'm looking, and that current crop is not getting it done.
Yeah, I would go outfield or first base. I mean, there's something here where you could put Connor Joe in right. I know he's like a negative defender right now, but you can sacrifice whatever for offense. I mean, when your team can't score a run against the Oakland A's, defense is the least of your problems, in my opinion. So we move on now to the third and final pillar that we need to talk about: staff changes. The reality right now is Andy Haines has become the new Matt Canada. And I'm not sitting here advocating for the man to lose his job. I don't want to see anyone get fired. But I will say when people are calling for it, it's hard to think of an opposing case for him to keep it. Because this was a clear problem last year. That some of these guys' approach simply did not look comfortable at the plate. And while development has been pretty good on the pitching side of things, Andrew, you look at how these young arms are coming along, it's encouraging. You look at the way they're able to find guys who have not had success in previous places or haven't had success in a while, be it starters, relievers, whoever. They come here, they've been good. More often than not, you haven't had that at this place. You can't think of many acquisitions, be it draft picks, be it prospects they got in trades and developed here, or be it guys they've signed through free agency or big leaguers that they've acquired via trade. Not many guys you can think of in recent history, since Haines has been the hitting coach, where he's made them a better hitter. And so it makes you wonder, maybe, do they make a change? At the same time, it is 1 month into the season. And if you're going to trust a guy enough to bring him back this year, you should probably give him a month. But man, the past couple of weeks have really tested that patience, I would have to argue. Or maybe this goes above Haines. Maybe it goes to the guy who wants him on his staff. Maybe it goes to the guys that are hiring all of the coaches. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on this. It's something that I think should at least be considered right now. Nothing should be off the table.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the right approach, is that when things are as trying as they are right now, something needs to change. And as we've articulated on this podcast, is that strategy, is that the roster in terms of who's on it, all of those factors can come into play. When I look at the coaching staff, where my mind goes to is that this might be a greater issue than just one individual person, whether that be Andy Haines or Derek Shelton, or even, Ben Cherington. Like, I think this comes down to, you look at the pipeline of who is awaiting in the minor leagues, right? In terms of, prospects that you're genuinely excited about, if you're a Pirates fan that's a hitter, it's Tremar Johnson, who's a long ways away. It might be a Lonnie White Jr., a guy who's further down the line, who's been injured a bunch. Like, there's not really a whole lot there, which leads me to believe that I guess the point that I'm getting at is that, yes, we need to question, is the current group, the brain trust in place, the right one? Sure. But I also have to wonder, is this a systemic-wide issue where everything about the hitting functionality, what they're looking at here, I think all of that needs to be brought into question. So, is it the root of the issue being Andy Haines? I'm not so sure about that. It's very easy to go there. But I think the point that I would make is that there's a lot of things that need to be questioned here. Things need to be changed. And I think across the board, anything is fair game.
Is it worth trimming down the tree, or are the roots poisoned? That's kind of the question that we got to figure out here over the next couple of months. Because, I mean, if it's bigger than Haines, if it's, hey, these guys are not the right players to be put in these situations. These were not the right guys to be acquired via the draft, free agency, trade. Then, yeah, I mean, and it's a very interesting setting if it does continue to trend this way, because what do? I mean, you have generational talents going to be here on the mound for next to nothing financially for the next 4 or 5 years. Theoretically, I mean, they could have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball not long from now. But I mean, but at the same time, this lineup you're looking at, knowing how this team spends and goes about its offseason, this is probably the same lineup the Pirates are going to have for the next 3 years. Give or take 2 or 3 names. This is what you have. Like Andrew pointed out, there aren't a lot of other guys coming up right now that are going to come in and drastically change things. Sure, you might be able to take out a Rowdy Tellez and put in someone else at first base or wherever else. Tremar Johnson will obviously be here, but this is it. So what do you do if it doesn't play out? And I know we're getting way ahead of that. It is still April. But these are thoughts that I'm confident we're not the only people having. Fans are currently having it, obviously, if you go on X. But I'm sure people within the organization had to have these thoughts as well, because it was not supposed to be like this by this point in the process. And things have to change, both on the field and around it, soon. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very interesting summer. So, Andrew, that's all I've got. You have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts are Andrew McCutcheon put it best. Team's going to be happy to be back home. And I thought his comments, he mentioned how being a designated hitter here in Oakland was a little trying because not really knowing where the batting cage was. And I got a good chuckle out of that, just given the facilities here in Oakland. So safe to say, after going to San Francisco and then Oakland, I think the Pirates are very much looking forward to a 9-game homestand where things theoretically should be fairly easy. The Rockies and the Angels, combined record of 18-42 for those two teams. If they don't do well in those two series, we might be right back here having similar conversations, Noah. So stay tuned, everybody.
They like to put all the money out on the field. That's what I hear about Oakland, right? No Pepsi, no batting cages. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. Check out our work at post-gazette.com and keep tuning in to Post-Gazette Sports Now, YouTube channel and podcast network for all of your Pittsburgh sports coverage. Take care.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.